Se non entra la prima sono dolori.
La presenza agonistica di Sara Errani.
C'è l'italiano storico questo incontro.
Match point Nadal.
Game, set, match. Federer. Hello everyone. Well, as you probably get from this hello everyone, which starts to be my my signature for this podcast, we're back with MTO, your Mini Tennis Observers podcast. And as usual, I'm joined by my international colleagues, which I'm very grateful for their help and support for this project. And I hope you are as well. So good evening. Here is quite late at night in Europe, but good evening from me, Giulio Gasparin, from Spazio Tennis and Sportface.it. And then we have Ros Satar, René, Denfeld, Diego Barbiani, as you could see in the intro. Let's make it short because we got plenty of topics to talk about. 2 days to the start of the last slam of the season. It's been a great season so far because, well, everything has happened this year. Is 2016 being 2016, as everybody knows, and as every Olympic year, we got the Olympics as well, with plenty of surprises, plenty great matches. And one of the questions is, did someone probably sacrifice a little bit for to peak at the Olympics? Possibly, maybe. Well, let's start with this, and I'll be asking to René what he believes are the stories to follow at this US Open.
Much of a storyline, to be perfectly honest, but to me at least, it's a fairly interesting little parallel world that's going on between the ATP Tour and the WTA Tour at the moment with regards to the number one and the number two players. Both tours have had number one players that have been incredibly dominant over the past couple of years, and now all of a sudden both of them are struggling a little bit with injury at the same time. With Williams it's her shoulder, and with Djokovic it's the wrist, and they've got number two players who've been pretty damn consistent over the past couple of weeks and months, and at least on the WTA Tour it's already a reality that Serena Williams could very much lose her number one ranking at the end of this year's Open to either Kerber, Muguruza or Radwanska. So yeah, to me that's fairly interesting. And on the ATP side, Djokovic's not going to lose his number one ranking, at least not now, because until the end of Australia, Djokovic has got an incredible amount of points to defend. And if Djokovic struggles here or there at one or the other tournament, and Murray is able to maybe grab one or the other tournament from now until the beginning of next year, I don't see why Murray shouldn't have a chance to make a push for the number one ranking on the ATP side of things.
And then what is your view, Ross? What do you think about this?
I guess there are a couple of stories to watch this time around. I think probably the most obvious one is on the women's side. Can Angelique Kerber snaffle the number one spot? I think she probably can. I mean, she's only defending third round points. Serena is defending semi-final points. It was interesting seeing Kerber at Cincinnati. I mean, granted, and I mean this in the nicest way, she's no longer as much of a head case as she was in Singapore, where the prospect of winning one set against Lucy Safarova sent her into a veritable tailspin. But she still didn't manage to really string it together. She did look very nervous in the final against Karolina Pliskova, and also Pliskova had been playing outstandingly well. So can she do it? I think she possibly can. I think there's a lot of pressure on Serena. Serena's going to come in undercooked, and I think that that's probably the main narrative, certainly, that I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
I personally am wondering what will be about Monica Puig. I don't know. I found her story fascinating in Rio because, it's 9 months ago she was ranked 90, and she said, my goal is to win gold medal in Rio because I want to make history for my country. Everybody was laughing at her, and then look what happened. She comes to the Olympics, finds the right chemistry, everything, and basically sweeps the floor and gets the gold. just as if she was one league above everybody else. And I want to see how she deals with it in New York, because on the one hand, now she knows she's that good, she can do it, and sometimes it takes this kind of breakthrough to be consistent at the top, which is what she has been missing. On the other hand, will she have digested all the party that she has been going through in Puerto Rico? Will she feel the pressure about it? I think this is a good storyline to follow. On a similar mental point of view, I want to see how Roberta Vinci deals with it. I know the Italian pretty well, and she doesn't give a damn about what people think, especially at the minute in her career. Yet, is everything started here. She became top 10 for the first time, thanks to the fantastic final she had last year. And we will see. I mean, we've seen with Panetta last year that the magic of New York can really make things happen. And it's been quite the same with Roberta. So I'm just curious to see if a difficult summer continues. She's been through a lot of pain with a tendon injury, or maybe the magic of New York happens again. Yes, we talked quite a bit about the women's storylines and women draws, and I think there will be space for the ATP talk as well. Don't worry about it. I will soon follow. But I want to start with the women's draw preview. So asking Ros Satar, what do you look at this draw and what do you see in it?
The women's draw, as we've touched on, I think the story really is going to be, can Serena hold on to the number one? She's going to come in with very little practice. She hasn't really done much on the hard courts at all. She pulled out of Montreal. She went into Rio pretty low, lost in the third round to Svitolina, came out of Cincinnati with a shoulder inflammation. I honestly think that this year's USO for the women is wide open. So the question is, can Angie Kerber take the number one, or can somebody else actually put their name on a slam title? Maybe it's worth a look at Halep. She seems to be doing a lot more of the walking the walk rather than just talking the talk. She's really put in some solid performances this year. She seems to have hit a happy ground with Darren Cahill as well. They seem to have settled into a bit more of a groove. It looked a little bit kind of spicy earlier in the year, but now she definitely looks like what changes that she's made to her serve are beginning to pay off. So I think on the women's side, she would be my pick for a surprise. But really, I think it's going to come down to a straight fight for the number one, and I think this could be Angie's moment.
And Diego Barbiani, what's your view on that, apart from the storyline of the world number one contenders?
Maybe thinking about the draw for the first 16 seeded players, I think the easiest one is for Dominika Cibulkova, the number 12, because she has to play Magda Linette in the first round, and maybe in the second she could play against Daniel Collins, local wildcard, and Evgenia Rodina, and maybe she can go farther in the draw, because also after maybe a third round against the Romanian Irina Camelia Begus, she can play against Roberta Vinci in the fourth round. But we know that Roberta has pain with her tendon, and she's not in a great moment, and she's defending a lot of points here, so it's quite probably we can see Roberta outside the top 10 after this tournament. It will be very interesting to see who will be in the semi-final against probably Angelique Kerber, because on the other quarter of the draw, of the lowest part of the draw, we have Madison Keys, we have Garbiñe Muguruza, we have Monica Puig. We have to consider the Puerto Rican girl, And we have also Svetlana Kuznetsova, who's playing against Francesca Schiavone in the first round. I'm not so sure about the Muguruza chances here, because I was looking at the WTA race to Singapore, and I see that she has 3,200 points, maybe, but 2,000 points was from the Roland Garros. So yeah, she's not having a great year. I mean, she has a Grand Slam title, but at the same time, she's not doing so much in other tournaments. She's another one who can have the chance to go further, but I'm not so sure about her tournament here. Also because she could play against Monica Puig in the third round, and she was beaten by the Puerto Rican girl 6-1, 6-1 in Rio.
I also think that there's Simona Halep, not to forget. A draw isn't very easy. She's actually got quite a difficult start with Flipkins and lots of good players coming up. But maybe it's what she needs, and she needs to keep her level up. And she's had a very good summer, and she decided to sacrifice the Olympics because of Zika. Probably there was lots involved with this decision, but I have a feeling that it's starting to become now or never for her, and she knows it as well, and it must be on hard court. She's a very good all-round, and her game works on every surface, but if it's going to be the first, I think it's going to be in hard courts. I think the US Open can be the one. Last year she made the semis. She's been good here in the past, and maybe playing Serena possibly in the quarterfinal could actually be an advantage for her, because Serena knows she must reach at least the semifinals if she want to be world number one. So the pressure will be all on Serena, and Halep has beaten Serena before and knows what it takes, even on a big stage. So why not? This is my crazy call for this women's draw. Then moving on to the men's draw, I get back to Ros again, and let's see what she sees in the men's draw that we should keep an eye on.
The men's draw is quite an interesting look. With Djokovic struggling from a wrist injury, it's going to be kind of debatable to see how well he's going to do. I think it's all going to be on his wrist, as it were. That sounds terrible. But, obviously we know that there were some personal issues that were affecting him in Wimbledon that played a part in his loss to Sam Querrey. Obviously Querrey played out of his skin as well that day, so let's not take anything away from him. But I could actually see Novak Djokovic struggling throughout the thing, and it's not an easy start either. Janovic isn't a simple start by any stretch of the imagination. What did surprise me was the news of Milos Raonic and John McEnroe splitting up. So much for the McEnroe effect. I don't know whether it's purely for the US Open, but there was something very, very off with having John calling Milos's matches while actually as his coach. So I think it's actually probably a good thing. And it's a tough quarter for Raonic. I mean, he is the only one of the Generation Lost boys that is looking close to sort of making that breakthrough, but he's got an inspired Nadal. But again, it's down to whether or not Nadal can overcome the wrist pain. He admitted in Cincinnati he wasn't feeling comfortable, but was desperate to play. So I think those two quarters, though, that half of the bracket is probably actually quite wide open. Maybe less so the third quarter. Dominic Thiem admitted in Cincinnati that he's learnt that perhaps less is more. And Wawrinka, well, who knows? We can never really tell what Wawrinka is going to turn up. I mean, he lost to Grigor, of all people, in Cincinnati. And actually, maybe Grigor's just coming back a little bit as well. For my money, and it's not just because I'm a Brit, it's all down to the bottom quarter. If Andy wants another chance to win the US Open, I think this is his best chance. There's no Federer. He's got a below par Djokovic. Rafael Nadal coming back to form. Kei Nishikori has proved that he really can't sort of be much of a match for Murray if they meet in the quarters. So yeah, I think the men's draw probably will see a final with Andy Murray. He'll make his fourth straight final. Could well go on to win it.
René, do you agree with Ros?
I don't even think anyone would be discussing the possibility of Novak Djokovic not making the semi-finals if it wasn't for his wrist injury. He's got two possibly tricky left-handers coming up in the second and the third round with Jiří Veselý as well as Martin Klizan. And I think Marin Cilic's been playing a pretty damn great tournament in Cincinnati to grab that title, and he's played that sort of tennis there that got him to the US Open title 2 years ago. Whether he's going to be able to muster that up again over the next fortnight, as much of a question mark as whether Djokovic is going to be able to strike through his backhand properly, I'd say. And on the other side of that half, I think Rafael Nadal's been handed a fairly decent draw into the quarterfinals. Milos Raonic is going to be a bit annoyed, I guess, that Gael Monfils is so close to him in the draw once again, because Monfils has handed the Canadian a pretty comprehensive loss on home soil in Toronto a couple of weeks ago. So that could potentially be a very interesting and a very fun fourth round match. On the bottom half of the draw, I think the third quarter with Dominic Thiem as well as Stan Wawrinka that's just absolutely wide open for me, because I'm not 100% convinced that Dominic Thiem is sort of back to the level that we've seen from him in the spring, because he's not played an awful lot. It felt like he was running on fumes a little bit over the course of this summer, and his hip issue is better now, but he hasn't had a lot of match play, so not sure how he's coming into the US Open. And with Wawrinka, not necessarily the most confidence-inspiring loss to Dimitrov in Cincinnati, and he's been hosed like big time by the drawing Verdasco in the first round, then possibly Zverev in the third round, Kyrgios maybe in the fourth round. So that's just to get into the second week, and I think that's a pretty big ask of Wawrinka to do that. So tough to say who's going to come out of that third quarter. And in the fourth quarter, I think Andy Murray doesn't have a lot of room for complaints really with regards to his draw. Most dangerous opponent, maybe Radek Stepanek in the third round. Who knows? No, but overall a fairly decent draw and a very interesting first round with a certain Lucas Rosol, who is, as we all know, one of Andy Murray's biggest favorites in the locker room. So that should be good.
So before we go for a little bit of fun and to call for the dark horses and the possible early upsets, we gave a thorough look at both the draws, and if you could buy a ticket for a single first round match, what would be your match, René?
I've got 2 picks for the women's side, 2 picks for the men's side. On the women's side, to me, I'm going to go with Sabina Lisicki against Yulia Putintseva and Barbora Strycova against Monica Niculescu. I think both for entirely obvious reasons that I don't need to state or elaborate on. And on the men's side, I'm going with Alexander Zverev against Daniel Brands, which should be a fairly fun and entertaining all-German tussle. And my other pick is Stan Wawrinka against Fernando Verdasco, which should feature a lot of heavy hitting and hopefully be as good as it says on the tin.
And Diego, your take on that?
The US Open women's singles draw is plenty of good matches since the first round. Obviously, the most interesting is Serena Williams against Ekaterina Makarova, and we know that Serena probably has the toughest first round match against the player who reached here the semis in 2014.
Well, I think, I think that René got the one I would have taken, which is Stritzova Niculescu. So I should go with something different. I think possibly Kuznetsova Schiavone could be a very good match. I mean, the two of them, there's something, I don't know, but every time they play, the matches end up being great. So this could be a good take. On the men's draw, I think I would go for Raonic Brown because, the creativity of Dustin Brown could really make the, I didn't want to say robotic, but the very mechanical game of Raonic get in trouble out there. I don't think this could be an upset, but I think it could be fun to watch how the two opposite of the scale play against each other. Now, top and flops, and ladies first. Ros, your take on this fun category?
I think on the women's side, my dark horse is going to be Keys. I think that she could really shock everyone if she gets over this neck injury that had her pull out of New Haven. I think she showed really good signs over the other slams this year. I think she's one to watch. I'd also probably keep a gentle eye out on Pliskova as well. She was like a train in Cincinnati. I think that she could actually surprise a lot of people. On the men's side, gosh, who would be my dark horse? I really honestly don't know who would be my dark horse on the men's side. Maybe Del Potro. It'll be interesting to see whether he can carry on this great journey that he's going on. Flop, I think the two world number ones are in danger. I think that injuries are going to play their part, and I think we could see way earlier than intended losses for them. I would even go so far as to say that I could actually see Serena going out at the end of the first week. Djokovic can probably hang on, but I think his style of play, I think his wrist will probably give out maybe fourth round.
And René, who do you think could be losing early in both draws?
On the women's side, I'm unfortunately penciling in last year's finalist Roberta Vinci for a fairly early upset. I think that it's perfectly conceivable that she could lose to Annalena Fritz or maybe Christina McHale in the next round. It could be a tough tournament for Vinci. Also, Simona Halep's going to have her work cut out for her. Getting past Flipkens and the winner of Shafazova and Gavrilova. On the men's side, it's. I think it's fair to say that Verdasco could very well surprise Stan Wawrinka in the first round. I don't think that's just completely irrational. And also, I'm not completely convinced that Gael Monfils is going to get past Gilles Muller, especially if Gael Monfils is still struggling with a bit of a back issue that's forced him out of Cincinnati.
I myself would go with a big fish in the men's draw, and that would be David Ferrer, because his part of the draw is packed. Not only he could technically get Del Potro in the third, but Dolgopolov is unpredictable, Fognini is unpredictable, and before you beat Ferrer, you need to defeat him probably at least 6 or 7 times during the match, if you know what I mean. But I feel that it's running a bit short with him, so that would be my guess. And for the women's draw, I go with Bencic, because form has just been not good since the injury. And well, Crawford hits the ball very hard, and then technically could be facing Petkovic, who is not in the best form, but still, I think I would give her an edge. And then no chance against Conta in an eventual third round. And now we kept for the last few minutes of this podcast what everybody wants to know. So, who's going to win US Open 2016?
On the men's side, I'm going to be fairly straightforward and just go with Andy Murray. Maybe I'm being blinded by recency bias here, no idea, but I think it's fair enough to take both Murray's consistency over the past couple of weeks into account, as well as Djokovic's wrist issues, which no one really knows how much of an effect that's going to have, and Djokovic is a bit of an unknown quantity coming into this tournament, so who really knows. But on the women's side, for me it's a bit like throwing a dart with a blindfold on, which is more testament to the strength and depth on the WTA side, to me anyways. And lots of it is going to fall even as early as the first round. Is Serena going to get out of that first round match against Makarova? That is just going to make such an enormous difference in this entire draw. So I'm struggling to really to pick a winner here, but I'm just going to go with Madison Keys.
Okay, my winners, and it's honestly, I swear it's not just because I'm a Brit. I do think this is Andy's for the taking. I think Murray is going to win a second US Open. And I don't know why. I think winning Wimbledon and being able to enjoy it has made a big difference for him. I think winning a second gold medal and becoming the first player to ever defend a tennis Olympic title means a hell of a lot to him. And I think with Novak looking decidedly shaky, with Nadal still not quite 100% with his own wrist, I actually think that this, if Murray can stop himself from taking the super circuitous route to in his matches, I think this is his for the taking. I think on the women's side, whilst I think a lot of people will say, if in doubt, pick Serena, and I'd love to see Serena get closer to wiping Margaret Court's record off the record books. I don't think it's going to be her year. I think Wimbledon was a great win for her. I think her drawing level with Graf was a fantastic achievement. But I honestly think it's going to come down to either Halep taking her out in the quarters or Kerber going the whole hog and winning the whole thing.
Well, Murray, I go with Andy Murray as well. I have this feeling he's just got to the place, he's in the zone, he knows what it takes, and my bet would be on Andy Murray on the men's side. On the women's side, as well, as usual, is a lot more open. I'm not too convinced on Serena Williams' form, and nobody is. She hasn't played basically, and she struggled in Rio, and it's tough to predict. And I agree with Ross. They usually say when in doubt, pick Serena. I this time wouldn't. As I said earlier, I think this could be Halep's to take. If not, is well wide open. I could see Kerber taking the second, or I wouldn't say random, but a surprising winner. So Keys could be a reasonable call, as René said. But yeah, I stick to Halep, just to make it different out there. And yeah, with this one, I wish you all enjoyed these podcasts, and possibly likely we will push something more out soon. If not, just to see how badly we fell with our predictions. And, well, enjoy the fantastic US Open, everyone.